Hello friends, so this is going to be our last Paris video. It is not a Paris vlog because we are no longer in Paris, but we wanted to do a wrap-up video, kind of going back over a lot of the questions we were asked before we left for Paris, giving our responses now that we've gone to Paris. What were the things about Paris we loved? What are some of the tips we would give to others who are thinking about going to Paris? Pro tips now that we've been there one whole time, and that kind of stuff. So that is what today's vlog is going to be.
So we have a few questions that several of you have asked, so we're just going to start going through those.
So the first question we got mostly before we left, and we've talked about this in a number of the vlogs, is did you feel safe? Sherry, what do you think?
I did. It was a little unsettling, actually. I kind of almost felt like less safe seeing the military men with like their full machine guns. Like that was a little bit weird for me. But I never felt not safe. I mean, I know that they were there to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But just kind of seeing them was a little unsettling, but I never felt unsafe anywhere we did or anywhere we went or anything we did.
Yeah, so much more of a military presence there. Military police, far more than I've honestly ever seen in a U.S. city. Like we'll just be eating at a cafe in like a random neighborhood and like military guys
like
walk by,
like
just like guns out, and it's like I'm just trying to eat my French
onion soup. It's not just like little handguns that the cops here have.
Yeah.
They were like full machine guns, and that was a little weird.
So that is kind of weird to see. Some other things that were very different stores you go into, whether it's Sephora or the Disney store, bag checks and security at the doors. You know,
almost every store.
Almost every store we went into. So I would say no, I never felt unsafe. Even at places that you would think were like high target areas like Eiffel Tower or like right in the metro,
which had the shooting just a few days before we were there.
Nope, never felt unsafe, but definitely aware, especially when you saw the military, that there was always the threat of something, but never felt unsafe.
Just kind of a heightened sense of, I don't know.
Security, and protection. And that's one of the things we talked about before we left is that we refuse to let fear of something that potentially could happen keep us from going on adventures or seeing cities or experiencing life. And I would say when it comes to safety, don't let fear keep you from experiences. Right. You know, so...
Because anything could happen in your hometown. So...
Yeah, but even at a place like, okay, sure, there might be a more heightened... chance or risk in Paris. So what? Like, be smart about it. But no, never felt unsafe. No.
So the next question is, would we go back?
We've talked a lot about this. We talked a lot about this while we're there. Every trip we go on, this is a conversation that we have about whether we go back or not. And here's the hard thing for us. And this isn't about just going back to Paris. This is really about going back anywhere. We want to see all of the world. Like, honestly, we want to experience everything and see everything. And so it's hard to justify a trip back to a place you've already been, even when that place was spectacular. So would we go back? Yes. But what we've talked about is that we actually might want to, if we got like a crazy screaming flight deal like we did this time, we might actually fly into Paris, spend a couple days there doing the things that we didn't get to, but then like either go see the rest of France, or even like go see the rest of Europe, like grab one of those cheap flights or cheap train tickets. So would we go back to Paris? Yes, but we would probably use it as a jumping off point. Not because there was anything wrong with Paris, because it was amazing, but just because like we want to see everywhere. The next question people have asked us since we've returned is, did Paris live up to your expectations?
And I'm going to let him answer this because I had been there before.
So I went into Paris with unbelievably high expectations for lots of reasons. One, like, it's Paris, right? Like, I can't think of another city in the world that you just hear so much about or that's so iconic. It's like the city of love. I mean, it's just like, it's Paris, right? And so my expectations...
And he had heard, like, my stories.
So my expectations about Paris were super high. And I've got to say, I've tried to think about, was there any place where it didn't? And I can't think of one. Like, in my opinion, Paris met or exceeded every expectation that I had about Paris. One of the things I loved was like even the stereotypes. Like, you know, so we live in Alaska, right? And there's lots of stereotypes about Alaska, most of which not true.
Not true.
So I always wonder when I go into a place, like, are the stereotypes I expect about Paris is this going to be true, or is this going to be like the whole Alaskans live in igloos thing? And so like I get to Paris, and the things that I wanted to see and that I hoped, like I got to see, like we're sitting drinking wine at a street side cafe, and like a lady walks by with like a armful of baguettes, and then a guy rides by on a bike and he has wine and baguettes and bread in his in his basket of his bike.
Like
and I'm
every
just like,
stereotype is true in a good way.
In a good way.
It's awesome.
I loved it. And so expectations absolutely met or exceeded all of them. So Sherry, next question. Favorite thing about Paris?
For me, my favorite thing was watching him experience it. Because I had been there before, you know, I've seen all these places, but going back and actually kind of seeing it kind of for the first time through his eyes was so much fun for me, because he is super expressive and just has like this childlike wonder about everything. And so it's so much, it was so much fun for me to just like see him gasp in awe at these amazing sights.
Yeah, for me, it's not just like, wow, it's a cool building. I'm like, Sherry, do you see the building? Like, and so, like, it was funny watching you, like, we'd walk into spaces and you'd look at me when I'm looking at everything.
Right. Yeah, that was always my first reaction. I would, like, look around and, like, look at him. And, like, I wanted to see his reaction.
Because you think I'm cute.
Well,
for me, my favorite thing in Paris, in a whole list of things that were amazing, it has to be Saint-Chapelle for me. I feel like maybe people are thinking that I'm sponsored by this place because I talk about it so much. And here's the reason. I've tried to think of why I loved Saint-Chapelle so much, and a couple reasons. One, like a lot of you guys know, like I was a pastor for 6 years. Like our faith is important to us, and so to be in a place that is was built to house the crown of thorns, or the crown of thorns if they're real, piece of the cross, a place that just like communicates our faith so well. That's spectacular. But then also, like, I'm a creative guy, and so you're just like, you walk into this room that is like the most beautiful, like, artistic creation I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. It's the only place in Paris we went that when I walked in, I had an emotional reaction because of the absolute beauty of it.
Yeah, I did too.
And
I
so,
had not been there before, so it was fun.
That's right, that was first for you. Yeah. The other thing I loved about it is that my expectations for that were kind of low. Yeah. Like, it's not on like the top 5 or 10 list. You know, it's not like the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, the Louvre. It's like, it's not along with those. I don't know why it's not. I think it should be on that same level. So for me, that was absolutely my favorite thing.
The next question that we've gotten is if the language barrier was an issue. And for me, it kind of was. I mean, I tend to like panic in any kind of uncomfortable situation, and so I was just uncomfortable kind of a lot because I couldn't just speak French very well, like at all. And so it was stressful for me. I'm gonna let you answer.
Yeah,
for you.
It wasn't really, I wouldn't say stressful for me. I would say we're very different in that way. Like, for you, when I don't know how to, it's hard enough for you to communicate with people when, like, we both speak the same language.
Right.
And so as for me, it was just, I don't know, it wasn't stressful. It was very unique. Here's what I will say, though. If you're going to Paris, make an effort to learn some of the language. You know, because we did that, and I was super glad that we knew what we did. I wish we knew a little bit more. Yeah. I wish we had spent a little more time on that. The language barrier never prohibited us from doing something or getting something we wanted.
Right.
I will say that, the whole trip.
Right. I mean, just like the first morning where he ordered something and got something different, which ended up being fine. It was still delicious. I
thought I was just getting a coffee, and the lady gave me, like, a coffee and a croissant. I'm
like this tiny little espresso.
Yeah, like, okay, well, that works. But yeah, I would say that it's important to know a little bit of the language, learn the basics. Because the thing we found with Parisians was that if you were willing to put forth the effort and meet them 10% of the way, they would meet you the other 90.
Right. Without fail. I mean, we never had any of, like, the rude or arrogant French kind of stereotype that people talk about. We never had any of that, and I think it's really because we tried.
Yeah, I will say, I did see where that stereotype comes from.
Yeah.
I think that stereotype largely comes from people who come into their culture, put forth no effort to meet them any percentage of the way, and expect, like, French people to adapt to their largely American, like, way to communicate.
Yeah, he saw that ordering coffee for me.
Yeah, so ordering coffee, on one of our vlogs, I go out to get Sherry coffee one morning. It's like the first morning I find her like a big coffee, right? I'm so excited. So when I get to the place that served them, there was a guy in front of me in line who clearly from the United States and spoke no French, like not even like bonjour, like nothing. And honestly, it was kind of rude because they weren't taking credit cards. They only were taking cash because of how early it was in the morning. And he just couldn't believe that. And he couldn't communicate with him where the ATM was. Like, he made like no effort. And so they were pretty rude to him. And so honestly, like I went up to the front counter thinking, oh no, like I'm the next American they're going to see after this guy was just a jerk. And like, so I walk up and I'm like, bonjour, you know, and like un cappuccino, you know what I mean? I'm making some effort. They clearly know I'm not French, but I'm trying. And they were so nice to me. Like they were so nice. And so I think that the whole rude French thing, like you're in their culture, right? Like you, like respect the way that they do things, respect the language that they use. And when we did that, people were great to us.
Yeah. And really a lot of the times that we would, you know, just say in French, we don't speak English, or we don't speak French, do you speak English? They would, you know, stumble their way through English and apologize for not having better English.
Yeah.
And we would just be like, no, but you have better English than we do French, so you're good. Like you're fantastic at this.
That was interesting. Like they would like trip over themselves, like apologizing. I'm sorry, we don't know better. I'm like, you're doing much better at this than we are. Let's be honest. Some other things though, like you can find American menus in some restaurants, especially the more touristy restaurants. Yeah. They had them in a couple of the ones we went to.
And sometimes they would ask if you wanted a French or an American menu.
Yeah, and
or English menu.
English menu. And so I'd say even, with pretty much everybody, there will a lot of hand gestures, a lot of pointing.
A lot of pointing, this is what I want.
But put forth an effort. You're in their culture. Yeah. Learn some of their language.
Learn some of their culture.
Yep, completely.
And on that note, a lot of French culture is, you know, food and wine and enjoying the food and wine. And so, you know, we noticed going to lunch and dinner, it was quite the ordeal. I mean, it was a long, like, relaxing, you're here to enjoy the food, you're not here to just, like, get in and get out.
Yeah, it actually might be during the whole food restaurant process where I noticed the biggest cultural differences.
I think so, yeah.
You know, in America, we're so efficient, right? Like, everything is about, like, efficiency.
In and out in half an hour.
In and out in half an hour, right? Like, in America, there's, like, lightning lunches. It's like, your food, get in, get out. Like, restaurants are trying to turn over as many tables as possible. Servers are trying to do the same so they get more tables because they get more tips. Completely different culture in Paris. Like, if you're going to lunch and you're going to sit down at a cafe, you're going to spend an hour.
Hour and a half.
Like, if you don't want to spend an hour for lunch, don't sit down in a cafe. Like, just grab something on the go.
Right.
Dinner is going to be an hour and a half or 2 hours, right? It just is. Because that's what their culture does. Like, we saw a lot of people, like, at lunch and at dinner. I think of our first dinner there was a guy at the table next to us sitting there with a book. Like, he was just there by himself, like, for 2 hours reading a book.
And not one person on their phone.
No, that was another thing.
If you looked around, anywhere.
Yeah, if you looked around at the tables,
you could tell who the Americans were, actually.
Yeah, because they would sit there like this at the table. The Parisians were all like engaged in conversation and talking to each other. Yeah. That was very interesting. I pointed that out to Sherry when we were sitting at dinner the first night. I was like, Sherry, look around.
Do you see any phones?
Do you see any phones? And there were none.
Like, we had been on our phone, like, looking for...
Like, words. They're like, like menu items. I'm like, what did we just order?
So we were on our phones, but I was like, we're literally the only people in this whole restaurant, and it was packed.
Yeah.
The only ones on our phone. And so we were like, okay, we'll just put this away.
So a couple things to be aware of when it comes to restaurants and ordering and all that. We learned this tip on our very first day, our first interaction in Paris with our cab driver, who was amazing.
He was excellent.
He was excellent. He was telling us, at restaurants, things to watch out for. And he said that the water in Paris is fine. Like, they will tell you at restaurants...
There's nowhere in Paris where you cannot drink the water.
Yeah, they said that the water in Paris is fine. Obviously, restaurants will try to get mineral water or sparkling water, which is a lot of times we found more expensive than wine. And so, but he said if you sit down and you order a carafe, you just ask for a carafe. That what you got is just like basically a small carafe pitcher of water.
Or a wine bottle of water.
Of like tap water.
Right.
And so that's free. So that was huge because a lot of restaurants, you could look around at other tables and there was mineral water,
if you
sparkling water.
Just say, I just want water, they will bring you a bottle of sparkling water.
For €5.
Right.
Or more. So that was a good tip.
And they will not refill the water unless you ask them to.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It's not just the water, it's the bread, it's everything. So when they take your order, like your waiter's not going to come by every 3 minutes and say, oh, so how are things going? How are things doing? Because remember, that's a process of trying to get you to move it along, right? Their goal isn't that. And
like
so
midway through your first bite, they're like, how is everything?
yeah, that doesn't happen.
They put their food down and they leave until you ask for the check.
Yeah, and you have to ask for the check. Like, they will let you sit there until, like, next month if you don't ask for the check. And it's just a simple, like, put your finger up, make eye contact, come over, la déchon, s'il vous plaît, ask for the check, and that's it. But again, in America, we're used to, like, them checking on us the whole time, keeping our water full, keeping our bread basket full, making sure we've got the checks. They're trying to get the table turned over. Completely different.
That does not happen.
In fact, one of the things Sherry and I were talking about with this is that if you're a planner, like you want to get your whole day planned out and you're in Paris.
Like this much time at the Louvre and this much time at whatever, if you're planning out your day.
Do the same with your meals.
Yep. Make sure you add an hour plus.
Yeah, and say, you know what, today we want to do a sit-down lunch at a cafe, so that's going to be an hour. Right? Or, maybe not. Maybe we're just going to do a quick takeaway from somewhere. So that'll be, 15 minutes. So just build that in and enjoy it. Like, when
the food is great.
The food's great.
You want to enjoy it.
Have wine. Have food. The food is tremendous. Yes. Enjoy it. Just know that the experience is going to be different than what you're used to here in America. And that's a good thing.
Yep. And I will say, the one meal that we were just kind of like, like it still wasn't bad. It was still good. But it was just kind of meh, was the touristy area. Yeah, all the other meals we kind of tried to not do like super touristy.
We were in a hurry that day. We were kind of on a time crunch, and so we just like popped into this one place and instantly knew, like, okay, this place is like preys on tourists.
Yep.
And like, again, good, but nothing like everything we had everywhere else.
No. So we also had questions about the hotel, it being a European hotel versus American. The room was smaller, but still comfortable. I mean, we didn't feel like we were, smushed. And the bed size was interesting. It was bigger than a queen. We have a queen here. And it was bigger than that, but it wasn't quite the king size. So I don't know, but it was an American or a European something.
I have no idea.
I don't know, but it was a good size. Like, it was comfortable. The bed was comfortable. The room service was great.
The housekeeping service?
Housekeeping, yeah.
Yep. I will say, it's not your normal Courtyard by Marriott, right? Like, that doesn't exist over there. And so just know the room's going to be smaller. You don't go to Paris to hang out in the hotel room, right? Like, we slept great. Housekeeping service was great. It was clean, safe. There were a couple quirks, though, about our hotel experience.
Yes.
One of them was outlets, right? Like, I don't know if you guys are like us, but we travel with a crap load of things that need plugged in.
Many devices.
Like, we had like 2 different cameras. So that's 2 different chargers. We have our iPhones. We have our MacBook Pro we were charging. So I was adding videos onto the laptop.
And my straightener.
You have straighteners. Like, it's just a lot of stuff that needs charged. So in our entire hotel room, there were 3 outlets. Not three double outlets.
3 single outlets.
None of which were conveniently located.
2 in like the opposite corners of the room, like by the bed, and then 1 by the door that was right outside the bathroom. So I actually had to plug my straightener in and have it like go through like the door into the bathroom. So there was no outlet in the bathroom.
So we don't know how much of this was like our hotel specific, right? Like, we're not saying this is all over Paris, all over Europe, anything. In our hotel, if you stay at the Hotel Concorde, Montparnasse, no, you're going to have about 3 outlets in your room. Plan accordingly.
Right.
Because there were a few nights, like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to use the facilities, and I would, like, switch camera charging batteries. Because, like, I wanted my batteries to be charged. There was no other way.
What we ended up doing, there was no outlet anywhere on my side of the bed. And so I just charged my phone. Either halfway through the night, we would switch phones, and we would charge mine or his or whatever, or I would just use our portable charger and then charge the portable charger during the day while we were gone.
So dumb.
It was just like, ugh.
The other part of our hotel room, and this was weird. Again, don't know if it's just our hotel, Paris. Sherry, tell me about the temperature of the water in our shower.
Okay, so the first thing we did when we got there was shower, because we'd been traveling for like 20 hours. We were just done. And so we showered, and I didn't know. I was like, maybe it was just my shower. And so then he showered and it was the same thing. The water temperature And then it did it the whole trip.
Yeah.
The water temperature ranged anywhere from broiling hot to freezing cold.
Yeah.
It never stayed the same, ever. And it didn't matter where on the temperature gauge thing you put it, it would fluctuate the entire shower. About every 30 to 60 seconds. It would just change temperature just because.
I've traveled a lot. I've never experienced anything like it.
And it was the entire trip.
And it was, there were some days where we showered at like 6 in the morning. There were some days where we showered at like 10 at night, like middle of the day. Like, it didn't matter when we showered.
When we got there, it was like 11:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
or something,
and so
it was every time of the day.
If you took a 5-minute shower, you would experience at least 5 extreme temperature. It
like so hot that you had to like step out of the stream.
And so cold you have to step out of the stream.
Right.
So the showering, that was kind of hilarious. Again, we don't know if that was just a hotel.
Funny, right?
Yeah. All right, Sherry, it's time to wrap up the Paris vlog.
Okay.
Any final words, final tips to people thinking about going to Paris? What would you say?
I would say I think everybody should try to make it a point to go to Paris sometime in their lifetime.
Yeah.
It's such a great city.
A friend of mine,
beautiful.
A friend of mine posted on one of my Facebook posts while we were in Paris, and he said after his first trip to Paris, he came away believing that Paris was the greatest city in the world. And I had that thought in my head the whole time we were there, because like I visited a lot of great cities, and so I was always thinking about that. And I left Paris thinking, I think he's right.
It could be the greatest city in the world.
Like, I really do believe it is the greatest city in the world. I will say a couple things. If you're thinking about going, just be prepared. You're going to walk everywhere, right?
Yes.
Like public transit is amazing in Paris. You can take the metro everywhere, but you're still going to be walking a lot. Still,
the train stations are quite the distance from anything. So if you're only taking the metro, be prepared to walk to wherever you're wanting to go.
Yeah, but let's say even the train stations that are close to things. Remember, train stations are 2, 3, or 4 stories below ground, right? So if there's not an escalator, you're taking 2, 3, 4 stories of stairs.
Up and down.
Up and down. You're walking lots of places because you're wanting to see a lot. So you're going to walk a lot.
You're going to walk a lot. There's also a lot of stairs.
A lot of stairs. So I would say if accessibility issues if that's an issue for you, just know that.
Yeah.
You know that you might want to do some planning in advance.
Yeah, there's very few ramps.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was very accessible. City.
Right. So there's even, we had to climb 2 or 3 stories or 2 or 3 flights of stairs to get to the elevator for the Eiffel Tower. So, I mean, even that kind of stuff. Like, there's nothing just ground floor, or very few things that are ground floor accessible.
Yeah, I think that's just the age of stuff.
Right.
I would say with Paris, my final wrap up, go. Like, go to Paris. It exceeded my expectations. It was beautiful. It was historical. It was, I might have said this in a vlog, I've never been in a city anywhere in the world in my life where more times I said, I can't believe I'm here.
You said it multiple times.
Just like stuff that, again, I grew up looking at photos of or seeing in movies or reading stories of in books or history. And it's like now, like, oh, that's right here. So, I thought Paris was absolutely amazing. I could not recommend it highly enough. Again, we got crazy airfare deals, so if you get a great flight, go to Paris.
No.
So tell us in the comments below, have you guys been to Paris? What are some Paris tips, some travel tips that you might have? And if you guys have questions for us, we really do try to respond to every comment, every question we get in the comments. So leave us a question below. We'd love to respond, give you any Paris tips that maybe we haven't answered in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have really loved sharing our Paris experience with you. It's kind of sad that this will be the last Paris vlog until we go back to Paris.
Right.
I guess we just have to go back.
I guess we'll just have to go back.
We'll see you guys soon.